Welcome back to the channel. This is Paulette with Seamless Notary. This is where I teach you all you need to know on how to become the best loan signing agent, how to keep that confidence high, and how to keep that professionalism going as a notary signing agent. Now, as a loan signing agent, if you are already doing refinance packages, you should have known that a typical loan package for a refinance comes with about 100 to 150 pages. On some rare occasions, you may have some that goes up to 200 pages. However, the good news is not every document requires a signature. Not every document requires a stamp. And not every document requires an explanation. However, today I am going to break down 7 of the most important documents in a refinance package that as a notary signing agent, you need to know like the back of your hand. And we're going to dive right into it. Well, Seamless Notary family, document number 1 that we are going to look at is the CD, otherwise called the closing disclosure. This is the one that contains the numbers, all right? So usually I give this document to the client first because if they're satisfied with the numbers are correct, then the signing is usually a breeze, all right? It's usually a breeze. So you don't want to go through an entire refinance package with the closing disclosure at the bottom, go through all 150 pages, spending 1 hour, or 45 minutes, come to find out that the numbers are incorrect. And the signer is going to tell you that they are not signing because the numbers are incorrect. You don't want that. The numbers are going to be incorrect. That's the first thing you want to know so you can reach the loan officer. So we're going to look at the CD today, all right? So for the closing disclosure, it is going to outline the numbers for sure. Of course, we're going to take a look at the loan terms, whether it's 15-year loan or a 30-year loan. We're going to take a look at the loan amount. We're going to take a look at the interest rate. We're going to take a look at the monthly payment, which typically includes escrow, if there's any escrow. And then we are going to take a look at the cash to close. All right, so this is the one document that the borrower spend the most time looking at. All right, of all the documents in the package, they're going to spend a lot of time looking at this document. All right, bear in mind that as a notary signing agent, you cannot answer any why question about this document. However, you can point on the document where those numbers are. So now that we have talked about the closing disclosure, let's take a look at it. All right, so if you're a new notary, this is a time for you to take a look so that you can have a visual look of what it is. So when you get your first signing, at least you know what to look for, all right? So this is a layout of a typical closing disclosure. Now, when I'm before a client, the first thing I want to point out to them is their loan term, which is right here. This is either going to be 30 years, 15 years. It's usually right here. So you want to make sure you point that out to the signer. Next, you want to take a look at the loan amount. You want to make sure they confirm that the loan amount is what they were promised. Next, you want to take a look at the interest rate. In this case, it is 8.5%. Now, bear in mind that you cannot answer any why questions regarding any of the numbers here, especially the interest rate. All these questions need to be directed to the loan officer, which of course you can also find the loan officer's number on this document here. Now, if you look at the monthly principal and interest here, it is going to be $768.92. This is something that you want to point out to the signer as well, all right? Now, if you look here, beside all these numbers, it asks at the top, can this amount increase after closing? And all of these says no. They all say no. So this is something important that you want to point out to the signer as well, that these numbers will not increase after closing per this closing disclosure right here. Now, when it comes to prepayment penalty, there's no prepayment penalty. There are no balloon payments. So these, of course, you would need to point out as well. Now, we're going to take a look at the principal and interest here. Principal and interest, again, is $768.92. When it comes to mortgage insurance, there's no mortgage insurance on this loan, all right? So, again, you need to point that out to the signer. Now, the total estimated monthly payment is going to be $768.92.
Now, if you take a look at the estimated taxes, insurance, and assessments, this is going to be $2,522.62 a month. But what happened here, if you look across from here, it says the escrow is not included in the loan. It seems like this signer will be paying their escrow on their own. So it seems, if you see here, it says they put an X right here next to property taxes in escrow, and it says no. Homeowners insurance in escrow, no. So the taxes and insurance is not included in the loan. This is something it seems that they will be paying on their own. So their total monthly payment here that they will be presenting to the lender is $768.92. Now let's take a look at the closing cost. This entire loan is going to cost the signer $6,173.37 to close, and this includes all these numbers here. It includes $5,364.04 in loan cost, plus another $809.68 in other costs, and there are some lender credits there as well. All these can be seen on the second and third page. All these you'll see as a breakdown. It says page 2 for details. So if they look at page 2, they'll see the breakdown of all of these. In the interest of time, I did not present any other pages here but page 1, because these are very important. Usually from they look at page 1 and page 1 is good, then they're typically good to go. Now, and the cash to close here is $75,379.13. Now, if you look here, there's an X next to borrower. That means this money here is going to the borrower. All right. This is the cash to close money that the borrower will receive from this transaction. All right. So that was a look here at the closing disclosure. Those are the things that I typically outlined to the signer. So it's important that you do the same as well. All right. Let's move on here.
So the second document we are going to look at, very important, is the promissory note. I typically tell my clients that, this is the most important document that you will ever sign in this package, because this is a document where you promise the lender that you will repay this loan. So we're going to take a look at the loan amount. Make sure the loan amount is what they promise. Make sure you take a look at the interest rate. Make sure the interest rate is what they promise. Take a look at when your first payment starts, when your last payment ends. Take a look at your prepayment penalty. All right. So these are all the things that we are going to look at in the note. All right. We also take a look at the maturity date. Very, very important to do that as well. So guys, now that I've just discussed the note, let's have a visual. Let's take a look at it, see what it looks like. Those of you who have never seen the note, now is a chance to really take a look and see what it is. Now, some lender will have it as a promissory note. It's the same thing, the very same thing. Now, if you look on the first line there, it says the loan amount is $100,001. Now, this is one of the things that I point out to these people. This is your loan amount according to what this note says. Now, bear in mind that we're not attorneys, we're not loan officers, so we do not have the authority to break down anything about these numbers. That's unauthorized practice of law, and we cannot get involved in that practice. All right. So any questions they have about the numbers as to why it is what it is, of course, as I said before, I cannot stress this enough, we cannot explain those. Now, if we look further down where it says interest, the interest rate is 8.500%. Again, this also corresponds with whatever is on the closing disclosure, just like the loan amount does. Now, if you go further down where it says payment, it says the first payment here is due on the first day of the month. All right. So that's the first payment would be on the first day of June 2025. And if you look further down here, the last payment is going to be on May 1st, 2055. And that tells them that this is a 30-year loan. Now, if you look further down, it says the principal and interest is $768.92. Now, a lot of people tend to ask question about this. Why is this number lesser than what is on the closing disclosure? They usually ask this question, and it's simple. It's because on this note, typically or usually, it's only the principal and interest can be on this document. So that's what's here, and you can point back to what is on the closing disclosure, have them do their math if they don't understand, or have them call the loan officer. Now underneath there it says the borrower's rights to repay. I have them read this because it tells them if there are any prepayment penalty or not. So I have them read that as well. If they do not understand it, I have them call the loan officer as well. And last but not least, on the bottom here, you see where it says fixed rate note. This also corresponds with the closing disclosure. It tells them based on this document here that this loan is a fixed rate note. All right, so that's all I do on this page. All right, I'll just go through it the way I just did, and that's about it. So Seamless Notary family, the next document that we're going to look at today is the deed of trust, otherwise called the mortgage, depending on which state you're in. Now, this is a document that secures the property as collateral for the loan. Very important document. It also places a lien on the property. Now, this document also is recorded with the county. So one thing I always tell my clients, make sure that the loan amount is correct. Also make sure that your names are properly spelled on this document, because you don't want the county recording it with the wrong name or the wrong loan amount. So make sure you can verify that and confirm that this information is correct. All right, so make sure you want to do that. This is a document that needs to be notarized, very important, and it also needs to be signed properly. This document can also require witnesses depending on which state the property is located in. So now that we just talked about the mortgage, let's see what it looks like. All right, again, let's get a visual. I'm a visual person, so I know many of you are as well. So this is a mortgage. It has the most pages in the refinance package. This mortgage in particular has 21 pages. Now, it's pretty simple. I always say to the signer, this has 21 pages. You're not signing all pages. We're just signing the very last page here. And I just want you to make sure that your names are correctly spelled. And also, you want to make sure the loan amount is correct. These are the two most important things. You don't want the county recording it with the wrong name or the wrong amount. And they usually take the time to look and make sure their names are correctly spelled. There are times when their names are incorrectly spelled and we have to stop the closing. All right, so it's important that their names are correctly spelled on these documents. All right, now also those are the two most important things I look out for, and I just tell them that the rest of it is just a lot of definitions, a lot of mortgage terms, so they can always read that on their own time or when they get bored, and I always get a laughter out of them. It's a little funny there. But those are the two most important things that I look at. And then I also ensure that they sign this document. Some lenders will have you put a date. You'll see where it says date. Some do not. So this is something very important that you have to look out for, whether or not it has a date or not. The other important thing that could be on the mortgage is that depending on what state you're in, you may require witnesses, which is always, talked about ahead of time. So it may require witnesses or it may not. And it would say it on the mortgage whether or not you need witnesses. I know here in Florida, we do not require witnesses. However, for some files, the lender will have witnesses. So it all depends on the lender. It all depends, I should say, on the lender. Now, this document must be notarized. It's a must. It's usually an acknowledgement. So you want to make sure that you fill this out properly, the correct venue, the correct state. Now, if you happen to have an acknowledgement where the date is incorrect, where the venue is incorrect, all you would need to do is just strike a neat line through the state, through the county, initial it and put the correct state and county. Do the same thing for the date. You would strike a line through the wrong date, initial it and put the correct date. All right, and just make sure you comply with your state requirement when it comes to the notary certificate. Make sure you do that. All right, it's very important. All right, and that's it for the mortgage. It's very simple. So Seamless Notary family, the next document that we're going to look at today is the signature name affidavit. Super important. This document is often missed and is overlooked by a lot of notary signing agents. They're not sure how to execute this document. And it's one that, always comes back not being signed properly. Now, this is a variation of the client's name, usually names that the lender would find in their credit report. So you want to make sure that they review and confirm that they are the same person as these names on this document. Now, if they're not that same person, they're going to strike a line through that name, initial it, and put never known as or not known as, whatever it is. But this document has to be executed properly. It also needs to be signed properly and notarized. Now, let's look into this document and look at a sample of it and see how it's been done. Okay guys, now I just talked about the signature name affidavit. Take a look at it. Okay, now depending on who the lender is, the signature name affidavit will look different. It will look different. Now here, as you see, this lender has it like this. Now I blocked out the names of the real people and I put my Seamless Notary names right there, but that will help you to understand what I'm getting at. All right. Now, these are names that the lender typically find in their credit report. These are different names that they find. Now, this document has to be done a specific way. And as I said earlier, a lot of notaries miss the opportunity to get it right. Now, the way you do it, you're going to have the signer look at all these names. And if any of these names are not this person, then of course in this situation what they're going to do is they're going to strike a line through the name that's not them, and they're going to write, as I have here, never known as. Now this is the wrong name. I've never been called Seamless H Notary, so in my situation here, I'm sorry, that wouldn't be me. So I strike a line, initial, and then I have never known as. Now, on some documents, of course, the lender will have a line next to all these names, and then they would have you sign the names, or not you, but the signer, have the signer sign exactly as the name appears here on the document. For example, number 1 here where it says Seamless M Notary, they would sign Seamless M Notary. Now, the next one that says Seamless H Notary, if they have gone by that name before, they would sign Seamless H Notary. And the very last one where it says Seamless Notary, they would sign Seamless Notary. All right, so they would sign their names exactly how it appears on the line for these documents. These are not their original signatures because these are variations of their names. All right. Now, and if you go down to the bottom there, this is where they would sign as well their original signature. As I said, these documents come in very different forms, very different format. So you just have to focus on what you have before you and the way it is presented and how it needs to be signed. All right. Now, this is an affidavit, so of course it is going to come with notary acknowledgement. You have to make sure that you fill that out properly. It's usually a jurat. And of course, it's pretty easy to identify a jurat from an acknowledgement. A jurat is typically, a jurat typically comes with the word sworn to or subscribe. And an acknowledgement usually use the word acknowledgement. So it is pretty easy to identify those, all right? And usually with a jurat, it's a sworn statement. So I typically just hold my hand up and I would say to them, because this is an affidavit, it's a sworn statement. So I have to ask you this question. Do you swear that the information you provided here is true and correct, and they would say yes. Pretty simple. All right, so this is how I would get this document executed. The next document that we're going to look at here is a notice of rights to cancel. A very important document here. Now, you will only find this document in a primary refinance package. It gives the signer the right to cancel within 3 days if they change their mind. Now, this form will outline the date of the signing. It will also outline the deadline for them to cancel. Also, the instruction on how to cancel. Now, as a notary signing agent, you need to ensure that they receive 2 copies of this document. You need to make sure they receive 2 copies, and also that they understand the rescission date. All right, very important. So we have just talked about the notice of rights to cancel. So let's take a look at it, see what it looks like. All right, some will look different depending on the lender. Now, with this document, I typically say this is your notice of rights to cancel. Like I said earlier, regardless of what you sign today, you have until this date to change your mind. And I always point to the date and tell them that they have 3 days to cancel, and I would calculate the date. If today is a Monday, of course, their rights to cancel would start on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So they have until Thursday at midnight. Now, if it's on a weekend, let's say it's on a Saturday, it will not start on Sunday, but it will start on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and midnight. So it's 3 business days rights to cancel. If it's a holiday, same thing. They do not count the holidays or the weekends. Not weekends, because they do count Saturday. It's just that they do not count holidays and like Sundays and stuff like that. So I always point that out to them so that if they need to cancel, then they know what date it is. Now, now you see where it says I wish to cancel. This is where a lot of agents get tripped. They get tripped up here. All right, they get tripped on this one. Don't let that be you. You do not have the signer sign where it says I wish to cancel, because if they do sign, then they're canceling immediately. All right, and you don't want that. So you're gonna leave that blank and have them sign the bottom right here where it says seamless notary. That is where they would sign and date. Now, some companies have 2 pages of this document, and they would sign on the 2nd page. Now, this company is just 1 page, and typically you have to leave copies, as I said earlier, with the signers. All right, so it's great to point this out to them so that, of course, they can cancel it if they wish to do so. Now, it also, as I said, it outlines the instruction right here and what to do to cancel. I have them read it themselves. I do not go through that. All right, so let's move on. Now, guys, the next important document that we're going to look at is document number 6, and this is a residential loan application. It's a uniform residential loan application, otherwise called the 1003 form. This is a very important document that needs to be signed but never notarized. Now, this form needs to be initialed on the 1st page, which I will show you a sample of that as soon as we get through here. Now, this is a form that, it outlines their personal information. On this form, it will list their income, their employment, their assets, liabilities, property information. I usually say to them, this outlines all the information about you. This is a form that you sign at the beginning of the process. Please ensure that all this information is correct. All right. Again, this form is never, ever notarized. Now that we have just looked at the 1003 form, which is the uniform residential loan application, let's see what it looks like. All right, again, those of you who are new, now is the time to take a look. Let's do a visual on the loan application. Now, the loan application, it can be a little different depending on whether or not you have a joint application or just one person. Now, right here where it says the type of credit, if you notice that here it says I'm applying for individual credit, there's a check mark or a radio button that is checked right here that tells us that it's only one person applying for this loan. Now, usually when it's one person, it's down the bottom here where it says your initials. Usually they do not initial. Some lenders will have you initial that. sometimes, even though it's it's an individual credit, they will have you do it, but for the most part, you can just leave it blank. However, if it was in a situation where it was a second button that was checked, then of course, you would have the individual's initial. That is very, very important. You cannot miss that initials if it is joint credit. So make sure you take a note and make sure that's initial. Now this document is just simple. I always say to them that, you know, this outlines everything about you. Your entire life is on this document. It has your basic information along with your assets, your liabilities, and stuff like that. That's what I tell him, and that's exactly what it is. Now the other important part that I look for is where they need to sign. You know, it may be on different pages, so you have to go through this entire document just to make sure that you don't miss a signature or a date. All right, for me here, it's on page 7. Is that what it is? Page 7 of this document. But it's usually the acknowledgement and agreement page. That's where they would sign. Here is section 6. So they would go down to the bottom here and they would sign and date. Pretty simple, all right? Because it's only one person signing this, then of course, I didn't have a lot to do here. Now, some companies will have you initial all the pages. So you want to make sure that you check the bottom of the page to make sure that you don't miss any initials. Pretty simple, okay? So Seamless Notary family, the last document that I'm going to look at today is the payment letter. Now, this is a document I typically look at right after the note. I want to make sure I keep all the numbers together, all right? What it does, it details the monthly payment. It's like a breakdown of the principal, the interest, the escrow, which is your taxes and insurance. You know, it also looks at the PMI, if there's any. And also, on your PMI is the mortgage insurance. It looks at that as well. And then it gives a total of the monthly payment. It's like an itemized list of all the things that are included in the monthly payment. All right. It gives a clear understanding of what the client is paying for. Also, it also details who will be servicing the loan. So make sure that this document is signed and is executed properly. So here's a payment letter, guys. This is what it looks like. Now, this payment letter has nothing to do with all the other documents that I showed you previously. You know, that package did not have a payment letter for some reason. So this is a payment letter that was already signed by these clients, and I just blocked out their information just, you know, for privacy purposes. But this is typically what it would look like. All right, some may vary depending on the lender, but the basic is usually the same. Now here you have where they highlighted the principal and interest along with the homeowner's insurance. Now mortgage insurance is also here. Mortgage insurance, yes, is also their property taxes. There's nothing there for property taxes, but of course they do have county taxes there, and it gives the total of what the monthly payment is going to be. The ones that I looked at, I don't think there were any escrow. They were making their own escrow payment. Here, this is included in their monthly payment. All right. Now here on the bottom is where they would sign and date. So this was a joint application that this was done. Now, if this was a single application, then of course only one person, it would have just one signature. All right. So that's it for the payment letter. It's pretty simple, pretty easy to follow. And that's it for the payment letter. So there you have it, guys. There you have it. We just looked at 7 important documents that you need to know like the back of your hand. Whether the back or the palm, but you need to know these important documents. We look at the CD, we look at the note, we look at the mortgage, we look at the rights to cancel, notice of rights to cancel, we look at the 1003 form. We also look at the name affidavit and also look at the payment letter. If you are able to execute these 7 documents properly, you will be more confident at the table, and trust me, your signings will be flawless. All right, so if you have any questions, any comments, any concern, leave it in the comments below. Like, subscribe, and share this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.